We talk about Open Philately. It's a new class. It's new. It's being experimental for years, but now it's a fascinating possibility to prepare an exhibit using not only philatelic material, but also non-philatelic material. And you'll be guided through the basic rules of exhibiting, what we are looking for, what the exhibitors want to know. So both the philatelic and non-philatelic material can be used in the development to tell the story. So it's creative, I think, it's interesting, it's fun, it's different, it allows you a lot of creativity. Agenda, present guidelines on judging open philately, and then we go treatment, knowledge and research, condition and rarity, presentations. We stop for questions and answers, and at the end I will do a comparison of present and the working group proposed SREF and guidelines. Okay, so just to have an idea of where we are heading to. It's proposed, so we hope that they will be adopted in the next Congress in Macau. Oops. So the current valid guidelines are those adopted in Sofia 2018, and they are posted on the FIP website. I will show you where. The FIP working group on open philately has drafted some provisional and more comprehensive SREFs and guidelines, because we had only guidelines, but now we are a commission, we'll have also the SREFs, special regulations. Okay, and the guidelines and the SREFs are there to help the juror evaluate the exhibit, and of course the exhibitor to make an exhibit in accordance with the regulations. The SREFs and guidelines hopefully will be adopted in 2026 Congress. Okay, so open philately exhibits show the dual aspects of philatelic and non-philatelic material. And the exhibit must develop the chosen subject in an imaginative and creative manner. Rules. Okay, the rules that we have now is the philatelic material must be at least 50% of the exhibit. That means 50% or more. And the non-philatelic material may be up to 50%. So for the moment, half-half is still okay. But it's not a requirement so that it's half. It can be 20% non-philatelic, 80% philatelic. That's fine. It can be 40% non-philatelic, 60% philatelic. But the variety of the non-philatelic material is very important because it will influence the evaluation of knowledge and research. If you only have, for example, picture postcards in your exhibit, that will not give you a lot of points. You should have a lot of different non-philatelic material, different types.
For
example, everything will go on that is less than 5 millimeters thick, but it can be beer mats, it can be playing cards, it can be small medals that are not very thick, it can be anything collectible. Okay?
Coins as well.
So, here we go. All types of philatelic material, which is included in all other exhibiting categories, and the non-philatelic material may include all types of items, okay? Excluding, of course, dangerous, we don't put dynamite in, and prohibited material. Non-philatelic items must be relevant to the chosen subject and serve to illustrate it. So also the non-philatelic material can be used, as I said previously, for development. Another rule, the philatelic items must be described in the proper philatelic terms. If it's a postal history cover, it should be described as a postal history cover with all the routes and rates and whatever, markings. So, in thematic, we have other similar, let's say, criteria how to describe various elements. Okay, the non-philatelic items must be also described and be relevant and assist the development of the exhibit. The exhibits may be planned in any way, chronologically, geographically, other ways you think of, but it must be a logical understanding, a logical flow, okay? And you explain it in the plan or in the structure. So the guidelines now say treatment 30 points, so title and plan 10, development 20. Sorry, the present guidelines, instead of development, have treatment. But in the new guidelines, we have replaced the treatment with development, because otherwise, to have a subchapter with the same name of the chapter is wrong. Knowledge and research. For the moment, we have philatelic knowledge and research and non-philatelic knowledge and research. So that means the research about the philately and the research about the non-philatelic collectibles. Material, that's the same condition and rarity and presentation. So where can you find the guidelines? On the FIP website. Inside we have an Open Philately website, and this is the address, but if you click on the FIP website and you go to the commissions, you find the Open Philately Commission and this link. So you just click on current guidelines. Some of the most asked questions. I said, okay, philatelic and non-philatelic material, philatelic must be at least 50%. If it's 60% and 40% non-philatelic, okay, but how do I measure it? That's the big question people have been asking. So don't try to work out the percentage of items, don't count items, don't measure the surface of the items, okay? Just look at the page or look at the frame. Take a step back and look at it. And you will understand very quickly if the non-philatelic items are a majority, okay, which is wrong. Another question which has been popping out are postcards philatelic or non-philatelic? So the regulation, we say, if the franking side of the postcard is shown, the item is philatelic. If the non-franking side, you mean the illustration of the postcards, is shown, then the item is non-philatelic. But most postcards in open philately exhibits are non-philatelic because usually you show the illustration part, not the franking side. And third question, how important is the variety of the non-philatelic material? The question was asked before. So we said non-philatelic material up to half an exhibit, but that means it's important to use as many different types of non-philatelic material. Beer caps, if you have a beer exhibit, I said beer mats and things like that, can all get in. So, if you have just similar items, non-philatelic items, you will not get top points. Okay, title and plan and treatment. The title, as you know, for all classes, defines the purpose of the exhibit, what you want to show. And the plan defines the structure of the exhibit, how it is structured in chapters and subchapters. And it should cover all the major aspects which are implied by the title. Treatment means to elaborate this promise that you have given with the title and try to arrange the material in a way that is first compliant with the plan, the same as is promised with the plan, but also in a way, present regulations don't explicitly say that, but it's better that you read through a story, like all other classes. So 10 points for title and plan. Points for treatment, development now, there are 20 points. Total 30. So if we look at title and plan, you have to show the purpose or aim of the exhibit, some relevant general information on the subject being developed, some, not half page, okay? Usually exhibitors write a lot, blah, 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 and then give a plan in 2 or 3 rows. A plan explaining the structure of the exhibit, and as I said, the plan should not include an extensive text, but a logical division of the subject into sections. This is the present. And I add, preferably, that runs and reads as a story. And important, an indication of how items of rarity are described. Red frame around the item, a small check, mark, or whatever. Because, and this is especially important for non-philatelic items. For philatelic items, more or less we are used to, we know what is rare, what is not rare, and so on. But for non-philatelic items, it's very hard to say what is rare unless you are a collector of that type of items. So it's very important to stress and say why the item is rare. And of course, if appropriate, an indication of personal research. Because in open philately you can have a variety of different approaches. The most used one is a thematic approach, to describe a subject or something, but it can be a history approach. And then, of course, to understand the history, you need to know proper references.
All the elements, all the required elements of a good front page are there. So, in addition to the title, there's purpose, which is explained briefly. There's some background information, also regarding the importance of this theme, as well as personal research. But most importantly, there is a very, very good plan, very balanced plan, very clear. It's not so story-like, but still the structure is very, very clear. There is a short bibliography, just mentioning the most important sources of information, not all of them. And finally, there's information regarding how interesting and significant items are highlighted. Sometimes you also define how the rarity is being rated, and there are certain, for instance, you can use certain symbols to indicate rare items. And there is a very nice piece also attracting spectators. So, very nice front page. At the next one. It's from my exhibit about tea. This exhibit deals with the history, culture, and business of tea. And roughly the first chapter is about the history. Second and third and fourth chapter is about the culture, dealing with the cultivation and processing of tea, how to enjoy tea, as well as the traditions in many places of the earth. And the final chapter is about the business side of tea. So in this case, there's a story which you can easily read through by reading the titles of subchapters, and it's written in the story. There's no need actually. You can find exactly the same the subchapters or names or titles of those subchapters in the actual pages. And there, in each page, we will come back to that development part later, but it's important you define these titles so that they also appear in the actual pages. There are literary sources as required by the guidelines, also a short description of personal research.
As I said several times already before, the exhibit should tell a story, and it should have a clear beginning, a development, and a logical end. The headings, what is above the page, should be the same as the headings on the individual pages. So what you have seen in the last example, okay, that exactly the same heading or subchapter title should go on the page or on the pages. And the plan should not be just a list of content, rather some brief paragraphs providing keywords or terms for the chapter or section or frame, but preferably a story, and the previous example was perfect. Adding frame or page numbers might sometimes be helpful to understand how much of, or to understand also the balance of the exhibit among various chapters. There is another introductory page. So here is just going according to the frames. It's conscience, conflict, that's not the very best, I think. And ending with camps. It deals with the concentration camps in Denmark during the Second World War. There is a story in there telling you what you will see. So there is a story, but let's say, it should be done according to logical chapters, not according to frames. Sometimes chapters overlap, fit into one frame, but don't put frame one, okay, chapter one. So let's try to talk about development. It's the relationship between the title of the exhibit, the scope of the story, and the structure of the exhibit, but also the choice of the material and its arrangement, logical arrangements on the pages. We talked about that. Any way the exhibitor feels appropriate, how the story should be treated is okay. Already said, headings, subheadings in the plan correspond exactly with the headings, subheadings on the individual pages. That should be like that. So is the item relevant to the story? Does it bring the story forward? Or is it just a filler in the page? If it fits into a story, it helps to illustrate the story, perfect. But sometimes you read and something says, what has this item to do with the story being told? Then it's not good. Please write the text concise, clear, understandable. So place the text near to the items that they are illustrating the text, not put the text in one big block and the items scattered around. Because if the items are scattered around, you can interchange them as you like. And it doesn't change anything to the story being told. Okay, also, non-philatelic items must have a text. I told you that they also help to develop the story.
A nice example of the exhibit dealing with camps during the Second World War in Denmark. And there's a nice page which contains, first of all, the heading, which is exactly the same as in the plan. There's a nice piece of barbed wire, which is just for decoration. Sometimes we may have another example here later, where there, instead of barbed wire, there's a short summary of the page. That is another way, or actually the preferred way to make this. But you can find a nice selection of different kinds of material here, and each item is connected with some text. And it's all items are put in the order of the story. So clear connection between items and text. Also highlighting certain keywords, which makes it easier to understand the relationship with the item. So very nice example. Okay, this is again from my exhibit. It talks about history of tea. The heading part is, there are actually two parts there. On the left side, this is exactly the same what you can see in the title page, in the plan. So no changes, exactly the same. But on the upper right hand, there's a summary of this page. So by only reading through those short summaries of each page, you get a clear understanding how the story evolves, not only on this page, but in the previous and following pages. And there's always a connection between the text in the previous and next pages. What we can see here is also using, maybe not so clear, but also bolded some keywords in the thematic text is bolded. But more importantly, we can see actually two types of text. We can see thematic text, which is in larger font, and then philatelic or non-philatelic text, which is in a different font. And as Peter said, all items which are not clear or are significant need to be described, whether they are philatelic or non-philatelic. For us philatelists, it's not so easy to tell what kind of items these are unless they are explained. Okay. We have another exhibit, and this example is from a very nice exhibit about, what was the name of the exhibit? Eva Moritz's exhibit. And there's another nice idea here. The headings are similar as in the previous example, but there's another idea, because sometimes, in particular if you're using bigger page sizes like A3, what is the order of these items? What is the correct order how you should read through the texts? So there's a small indication of the number, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's very clear in which order these items appear along the story, because the most important thing is that items should be in the order of the story. No other reason to do that.
Yeah, that's right. An even better possibility would be to have this on top and to move this bottom. So then, of course, the text will read from up left down to the right. Okay, knowledge is documented through the choice of material and the use of concise but understandable text, and sufficient text for that. Research should be interpreted in a wider sense and generally show the exhibitor's thorough knowledge of the subject and the material. And that's especially, research is important for non-philatelic material, okay? So this gives you 20 points for philatelic knowledge, and it gives you 15 points for non-philatelic knowledge. So total 35 points, as in all other, more or less all other classes. Knowledge is shown in the choice of, say, of both kinds of material and the analysis of the material through the personal study. So what you write, philatelics or / non-philatelic text. And this is the collective knowledge that you gain from books, articles, website, you go to libraries, you research, and so on. Okay? Maybe you talk to other philatelists and find out something more that you haven't known previously. So, philatelic knowledge, a few comments.
Okay, this one page again from the T exhibit. There's all items here described, philatelic items in particular. There's a mulberry cover here and some varieties of US stamps with horizontal perforation shift and a double print of black color and then reflex print on the common side. So all of these items are briefly explained philatelically, but it also the non-philatelic items are described in a similar way, using the terminology of each item. For instance, the trading cards printed in certain series and certain time. So, and this is another example from the Danish camp exhibit, where you can see very nice philatelic items, each described briefly, but still adequately. There are certain things in red color which even emphasize some, like this condemned, which you can see on the cover as well. Yeah, letters written in English. Yeah.
So non-philatelic material, Yuri, it's the non-philatelic material, just say a few things like...
Well, on this page there are a few philatelic items, one postal item and then one fiscal item. Okay, they are both philatelic items, obviously. But then we have the non-philatelic items. There's tobacco trading cards. There is 1 quarter on a coin of British India. Another tobacco card. Yeah, they are all explained because it shows not only defines the item, but also tells to the viewer what is being shown. So,
yeah, here you have a big, let's say, non-philatelic item, of course. It's very nice, and of course it's original. And you have another one up here, okay, and this is a philatelic block or mini sheet.
So it is copy from the book?
No,
It's original?
this is original, and this is also original.
So it is derived from the book?
this one is an original print.
Yeah.
Ah.
Number
So
2 of a series presented by the Stanley Gibbons group.
Okay.
Research. So, research means always finding something new. That means new knowledge or knowledge presented in a different way from a different view, which has not been published or seen previously. So, of course, it's recommended that the exhibitor might write articles about his subject, in magazines or journals, even a book. And in that case, it's good to put that reference on the plan page. So, philatelic research. If I remember the story, it's by sending a letter. This is the letter, and this is a copy of the letter that went through different ways, first on foot, then on donkeys, then on a railway, and then on a car to some destination. So again, see, this is original. This is some extract from a newspaper or a notice that has been published, and the original letter that has been carried. Denmark again. So here you see, okay, denomination missing on the first and third stamp. Okay, you don't see any denomination, but that's a problem of because you have to look at a certain angle to say it, I think. But on this stamp and this stamp, the denomination is not seen. Denmark, this is a French, of course, booklet. See, now these booklets, the stamps are important, so it's opened. And it's, of course, the liberté, égalité, fraternité. She describes that Denmark wanted to introduce, and then some king or some, if I remember, government official prevented that. And that was the story. You should read all of it, but that's another very nice example, Uruguay Express Company, far ago. Non-philatelic research. Okay.
It's the best page for describing non-philatelic research, but yeah, I mean, there's, as mentioned before, those non-philatelic items would need to be described using the terminology that is used in general to describe those items in those fields of collecting. For instance, for postcards, whether it contains divided pack or undivided pack, when it was published and by whom. These are the information that you would expect to find in a good postcard exhibit. There's a trade card, again belonging to a set of cards of certain series from a certain publishing company, and it has been produced by a photomechanical printing method. And because there are sets in different languages, it is mentioned that it is the French language. All this information is actually, or some of this information is easily available. For example, trading cards have been catalogued. You can find a lot of information regarding postcards, but then there are also fields of collecting which are not so generally known. For instance, certain types of trade cards are catalogued, but other types are not. So it's always, you have to look for this information from very, very different sources. Sometimes you are lucky and sometimes you are not so lucky. But what it requires is lots of research. Next one. Okay, this is from the Danish camp exhibit. What can be said about the room?
These are sheet levels, okay,
Yeah.
with some verse for the liberation, and they were issued for the benefit of a memorial fund for Gestapo prisoners. And these are other leaflets that were sent to the field by the opponents of the Nazi ruling of Denmark. This is the thing that is printed on here. And this is a church from a guy, a priest, which was murdered by the Nazis. Okay. So, material, condition and rarity. As we said, all philatelic material must be original, and non-philatelic material should be original wherever it's possible. Of course, if you the only thing you can refer to is a document kept in the state archives that you cannot get it because it's the only copy, then you state that and you're allowed to show a photocopy. Okay, but it's very exceptional. And use a variety of non-philatelic material. Of course, all of it should be in the best possible condition. An indication and reason should be given why this material is rare or significant. Okay. Reproductions, as in all, should be at least 25% different, so the condition, it's 10 points. and rarity 20 points. Total 30. So let's look at condition. The quality of philatelic material, okay, is the same as compared in all other classes. So only if the material is not fine, explain why, if possible, or get a better piece. And similarly for the non-philatelic material. So here you have a condition, beautiful Valentine letter, and perfect condition, okay. And the card on the left is also, the portrait is also beautiful engraving. Again, the medals are nice, they are well preserved, not weared off. The embossed, the embossed, this 5 shilling stamp is perfect. So this is really good quality examples. If we go to rarity, it may be very difficult to assess rarities, but some, of course, for postal history items we have registered. We can go maybe to also collectors if you don't find information in books. So it's vital that the exhibitor explains why the item is rare. We have been repeating this, but bear in mind. And the way to indicate the rarity, for example, where are we now? Okay. You can use different symbols, a thicker frame, brighter color of the frame, whatever you want, but just state it on the plan page. Okay, examples of rarities, here are all 3. One of the very few perfect quality Pony Express letters. Okay. A very early 1847 Valentine envelope and an act of from a state council. Of course, rarities are artworks that are used to then print stamps. Oh, sorry, which are okay. Okay, here it is. Yes. Or sketches, especially good if they are signed by the author. Here's all the sequence. And at last, presentation. So, might be only 5 points, but we know that presentation is essential. If you have a sloppy presentation, everything you talk about, you show, doesn't look nice, and you automatically take away points from other criteria, unfortunately. So, the exhibit should be appealing and well balanced, as in all classes. 5mm thickness is the most width for non-philatelic material. Total 5 points for presentation.
And why that decision of 5mm?
Because otherwise
The frame.
the glass of the frame will break.
Well, depending on the type of frame, if you put in the center of the frame, you can get away with more. But yeah, I understand.
You understand? Thank you.
Nobody's going to measure the.
It's just a reference.
I've seen some nice techniques lately in which a cardboard was placed about 5mm, and the material was placed inside the cardboard. So it shows on the front side perfect. Doesn't even look that it has a width. Okay, most appropriate size of paper, A3 or 3 pages across, and light color paper, okay, cream, not dark color. Easily readable typography, Never less than 12 points, please. I'm getting old, but if you have, and I've seen an exhibit, mathematics, with 9 points, I said, I'll give you 3 points off for treatment, because I cannot read what you have written. It's impossible. So we put in our guidelines that it should be 12. Layout, of course, great challenge, but it's up to you, imagination, how to do it. Okay, that's one example. Another example, you recognize the various layouts, how you do it. This is also a nice example, for example, with silver spoon, a pin, a medal, an insignia, or whatever. So the examples shown were kindly provided by these exhibitors. Thanks to them. We already did a lot of these questions and answers, but we have still 20 minutes. I would like to go through the guidelines, through the new proposed guidelines, so you get an idea of how things evolve. But last question.
Hopefully my last question. Is there a minimum number of non-philatelic items that would qualify this for an open exhibit?
No, that does not say, but the minimum number will influence your knowledge about non-philatelic items. So it will influence the score in knowledge. That means you don't know what kind of non-philatelic material there is for that subject. Okay, I'll go very quickly now to compare the old guidelines on the left, the new guidelines in the middle with this blue background, and the comments why we changed this. So the old guidelines were only guidelines, no strefs, and you know that the strefs are important. The most important thing is our strefs. The guidelines are only the comments to the strefs. So we introduced the strefs in italics within the guidelines. Of course, we stressed that you can use both philatelic and non-philatelic material to contribute to the understanding of your and development, of course, of your topic or subject. Here, remember the present guidelines say 50, up to 50, or at least 50 and things like that. People don't understand that. New guidelines say the philatelic material must be the majority, more than half of the material. Okay? And we say how to assess it. We already talked about it. No counting, no measuring, just step back and estimate it. So, again, almost half of the exhibit for non-philatelic material. This is introduced to make exactly understandable what is philatelic and what is non-philatelic. And we say that an item is philatelic if the item was issued, intended for issue, produced in the preparation for an item valid for paying a postal charge, or for a revenue issued by an official authority. That's the usual. Also in thematics the same. The item has been indisputably carried by postal or other duly commissioned authorities carrying mail. So if an item went through the mail, in principle it's philatelic. But we say the picture side of a picture postcard is non-philatelic. Of course, if you show a maximum card, it's philatelic because it's a Franken-side that you're showing.
All the postcards, where it was allowed to put the
Code de ville, yeah, okay, of course. That's the Franken-side, but we have said that, yeah. This is the strefs. Now we explain the strefs. So in more detail, I won't go through, but page, any free franking or pre-philatelic item carried by a postal service, okay, is also philatelic, of course. revenue, if it was issued by government, national, local, okay, for the purpose of paying a charge, it's allowed. It's considered philatelic. Picture postcard, we already talked about it again. Frankenstein is used, philatelic, including maxi cards. If the picture side is shown, of course, it's non-philatelic, even if it was, let's say, printed by the post. Post prints a lot of, sorry for the expression, junk stuff, okay, advertising and all this, which is non-philatelic. Okay, in order for an item to be treated as philatelic, it must have at least one of the three aspects that have been just shown. And we stress the variety of non-philatelic material by saying it is expected that exhibitors exploit the possibilities available using non-philatelic material in the development of the topic. So this remains the same, but it's part of the SREF. Here, redundant description in the old formulation, now we simplify it, but we added this to describe significant items, okay? From traditional postal history, postal stationery, how you describe it, you should describe it. And significant non-philatelic items should be also described using the appropriate terminology. Okay. We also, in the new proposed guidelines and SREFs, have moved a lot of paragraphs which were displaced in parts which were not dealing with, for example, something that is presentation which was under treatment or vice versa. So this exhibit may be planned chronologically, we moved it to development, of course. Okay, in the old guidelines it said, okay, who is gonna evaluate the exhibits? Approved specialists in their respective fields. Who are the specialists? So, accredited or appointed jurors of open philately. Okay, here the old one was treatment, as I told before, now it's replaced by sub-development, and again, philatelic knowledge and non-philatelic knowledge, now it's subject knowledge and material knowledge. Much more clear. 34 is for treatment. Okay, let's go on. We introduced the concept of storytelling. We introduced the indication of rarity that should be in. The old was requirement and indication of personal research and the bibliography. Now we say indication of personal research if appropriate, and the brief bibliography, okay, also if appropriate for personal publications. Important headlines and sub-headlines on the individual pages should correspond to the one in the plan. And we say for development, the concise and clear text provide the information, and the text should flow smoothly to describe the development of the story. Okay, so now we have, instead of philatelic, non-philatelic material, we have a subject knowledge explained, and knowledge and research about philatelic and non-philatelic material. That means about all the material. Again, the same. Condition and rarity, not much to add, but we simplified, not repeating philatelic and non-philatelic, we just put all material. And we move this to another part of the guidelines. Again, move these paragraphs to another part. Condition criteria were missing from the old guidelines, so we repeat that. Rarity criteria were missing, and we state that. For example, artificial narrowness of definition should be avoided when you describe items. You know, if you have one item of 5 known from an entire country, that may be scarce or rare. But if you have the only known item which is sent from a specific village, that's not let's say rare or significant. Okay, presentation more or less stays. We just added not only A3 sheets, can often be advantageous, but larger than traditional pages can be advantageous. So this allows both A3 or square pages, as the FIP rules now say. 5 mm stayed, we moved another paragraph to a better, proper place. And at the end, there was a whole chapter on awards, which was nonsense, because this is treated in the srefs, and we don't need to have it in the in the graphs, and we don't need to have it in the sref. We introduced the narrow theme exhibits like all the other classes. Also here in Open Philately, it's possible to have now 1, 2, or 3 frame exhibits. So, that's all that I wanted to say. We are in good time, so if we have 5 more minutes for questions, if any, before moving to the next presentation.